Detroit? It is Leisha B with the Morning Rollout, and we are back with another Detroit Culture Shifters, and this one was definitely one we had to do. I mean, he's from Saginaw Valley State University alum. He is probably going to tell us exactly what we need to be doing financially and what we shouldn't be doing financially. We've got none other than Clift Roach II. How you doing, friend?
I'm blessed. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. So I've been dibbling and dabbling in your world, figuring you out, but I want to start from all the way to who you are besides being the money coach.
Yeah.
Okay, so who is Clift and how did you become the money coach that we see today?
Yeah, that's definitely a loaded question. So, Clift Roach II, otherwise known as Clift Roach the Money Coach. I'm just a kid from West 7 Mile. I grew up, parents working really hard, had an older sister, just had a family full of love and respect and great work ethic. And I think that's really been instilled in me all this time. So through school, athletics, my professional career, I've always just been focused on respecting the people around me and working really hard. And as you mentioned, graduated from Saginaw Valley State University. And I jumped into corporate America working, not really having an idea of what I wanted to do long term. I just knew two things. I wanted to make a whole lot of money and I wanted to impact people, right? And so as I started working, I actually ended up getting introduced to a financial advisor, became his client. And then that's how I bridged the gap between, not knowing what I'm doing and making money to actually getting in the career, because my advisor ended up introducing me to the career and I took advantage of that opportunity in late 2019. And the rest has been history. But who am I at the core? Again, somebody who's just focused on respect, loving people, building community and education. So that's in a nutshell. I'm sure we'll unpack that more, but I'll stop right there because I could go all day.
No, I love it. And I love that. I won't say it essentially fell into your lap because you worked for that moment, but I love that it was able to, one, figure out what you did long term, but you were still able to impact people.
Absolutely.
So with being a financial educator, how do you go about it? Because I feel like, especially with our community, people of color in general, I think money conversations aren't had in the household.
Absolutely.
So were they had for you, or did that happen with this mentorship?
I'm really glad you asked me that, because I often ask people I talk to, whether it's on my podcast or in our one-on-one meetings, about what the money conversations were growing up for them. But nobody's ever really asked me that, right? I've volunteered the answer, but not many people have asked. So there's a very short list of lessons that my parents always told me, but a lot of things just came by observation. One thing my mom always said was live below your means.
Yes, come on
right?
now.
That was the main thing she always taught, but it wasn't really much education around this is how you invest, right? This is what, growing wealth looks like and passing it to the next generation. She would always say, don't live beyond your means. And I remember one time her trying to explain to me what interest meant when you take out debt, right? Like you've got a principal and you've got interest. The principal is the concrete amount that you borrowed, and the interest is the extra money on top that you have to pay back. And when she was trying to tell it to me, I was probably in high school. So it was in one ear, out the other. I wasn't really registering what she was saying. But what I think is significant, Alicia, and this is something that I talk about a lot with professionals and adults that I teach now, there's two types of interest. There's the interest that you owe somebody because you borrow money. And then there's the interest that you can earn from investing money, right? And that's when somebody's paying you extra. The definition of me earning interest wasn't something my mom was telling me about. She was just telling me about the interest that required me to pay back debt to somebody else.
Right.
And that mindset shift right there is powerful, right? Because I think a lot of people are on the first half of that coin where they're used to paying other people interest, but they never cross that bridge and say, no, let me put myself in a position to where people are paying me interest and I'm growing my money and doubling it over time. So no, there weren't a lot of technical lessons taught in the household, but that was the main motivator behind me getting into the industry, because I knew, like I said, I wanted to make a whole lot of money. So there was no way I would get there without me learning all the tricks of the trade. So I got into the industry because I knew I would have to learn as much as possible to be able to teach other people, but also to be able to manage money well for myself and for my future generations.
So with that, when you're having these conversations with people who I'm only assuming don't have those conversations with their family and their household, and they're coming to you looking for that next step, what is that one thing that is always brought up or is always a common denominator when you're approaching conversations like this, or something that you don't think people really think about before
Yeah.
they're sitting in a seat with you.
For sure. I don't think people register that most of the habits they have right now came from what they observed from their parents. And so we always unpack that. And that's how we start the foundation of those conversations. And to answer your question about how do I approach that? How do I educate them? Well, that's normally how I start when we're in a one-on-one setting, is letting them unpack, who was in the household that raised you and what did you learn or observe from them?
Right.
Because you might have witnessed one parent, pay bills on time, invest in the market, plan for retirement, do all the right things. You might have had another parent who was a shopaholic, and they ran up credit cards and they splurged and they never checked their accounts. They were behind on bills. And you might have saw parents, fight and argue over money because of a dynamic like that, right? Or some people have never heard anything from their parents about what to do. They just see what's going on and they repeat those same habits.
Right.
So when I sit down with adults and I'm like, okay, before we unpack what you do right now at 30, 35, 40 years old, let's talk about what you saw growing up. And then throughout this conversation, I'm going to see if there's a correlation here and help you identify that, because that's the first step. Because if you're trying to get from, I'm in shambles to, oh, I've got it figured out, I'm investing and everything's working well, we got to understand why you got in this shamble of a position in the first place, or vice versa. If you're doing everything great and you're checking all the boxes, is it because you don't want to repeat the mistakes you saw? Or is it because you witnessed really good planning growing up, so you're replicating that? So that's definitely something that we unpack and talk about all the time.
And I love that because, like you said, I think a lot of people don't realize that most of your money problems are because of habits that you can absolutely break and you can absolutely change. And I am grateful that I did have a mother who explained it. Now, did I listen necessarily? Not probably.
Yeah.
But she did break those things down for me. And I'm glad that there is someone who can break things down for the Metro Detroit area.
For sure.
Especially because I've noticed that Detroit has a crazy hustle culture. We're always trying to access new spaces and innovate. And I think that we can't move past that without financial education. So why is it important to have those money conversations while you're trying to grind out right now? Even if you're just starting out of college or you're just building something, why is money conversation so important with that hustle culture as well?
So the analogy I like to think of is, if you were going to drive from your house to a destination that you've never been to before, and let's say it's 300 miles away from home, are you going to start your GPS once you're halfway down the street, or would you start it before you pull out the driveway?
That's a good one.
You would probably start the GPS before you even move the car, because you don't know which turn to make. And there might be a closure here, a delay there, construction that you need to get around and find an alternate route. You never know what might come up on your trip, but you started that GPS long in advance. Sometimes, I don't know about you, I might even look at it the night before just to have an idea, okay, I got to take this freeway, go in that direction, so I know in the morning I have an idea of where I'm headed. That's the same way I look at financial planning. So even if you're in college, or you just started your first job, or you're not married, you don't have kids, you haven't bought a home, you should still be planning for your retirement and for the next generation, or at least getting an idea of what that roadmap of your financial journey looks like, so that when it is time to start, you at least have an idea of where you should be going. And to be honest, when I see people 3 to 4 or 5 years into making money, whatever habits they started off with in those first few years is pretty much what they're going to stick with. It's really hard to course correct once you've gotten in a groove of managing money a certain way, unless you have an abrupt reason that you really need to make a drastic change. So it's always important for people to start early, even if they aren't, 10 years into their career yet, or have anybody else relying on them. You got to get an idea where you're headed before you even start running.
I love that analogy. I don't know why that unlocked something for me, so I'm hoping it unlocked something for other people. But I feel like with being in this field, there's a lot of ups and downs, not only in the business side, but just you learning as well.
Absolutely.
So what's a mistake that you probably made financially that now, with a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more context, you're like, okay, I would have handled that differently? Because I feel like it would be nice to hear from someone who looks like they know what they're talking about and knows actually what they're talking about, but also still had, bumps in the road. So can you talk about one of your biggest mistakes financially?
Absolutely. This might sound crazy, but one of my biggest mistakes financially was having too much money in my bank account. That sounds crazy, right? Most people are like, I want that problem, right? So I'm gonna break down why that's a mistake. So I'll use another analogy, and I love this one. If I gave you $1 back in the year 2006, right, 20 years ago, and I say, hey, you can go to the gas station and buy some snacks with this $1, how many things could you get from the gas station with $1 in 2006?
Probably a lot. I ain't gonna lie to you. Nowadays. Well, yeah, 2006, I'm running up a check in 7-Eleven. What you
Literally,
talking about?
all type of stuff, right? Probably 4 bags of chips, right?
Right.
Well, in 2026, if I gave you $1 and said go buy something,
I ain't gonna get a bag of chips.
you can't even get a small bag of chips for less than $1.
Probably can't even get no gum.
Exactly. I don't know if there's anything in the gas station that you can get for less than maybe 1 or 2 items.
Maybe a newspaper.
Yeah, but not much, right?
Right.
And who even buys newspapers anymore, right? So the reason why I bring up that analogy is because money loses value when it's not growing, right? And the prices of everything around us go up every single year. That's called inflation. So the fact that a bag of chips that was 25 cents in 2006 is now $1.29 in 2026 is inflation.
Yeah.
So if a bag of chips has multiplied 4 times in its cost over 20 years, that means your money needs to be able to multiply 4, 5, or 6 times over a 20-year time frame. Now, if you keep your money in the bank, so let's go back to the 2006 analogy. If you had $100 in a bank account in 2006 and you never touched it, you never added anything, you never took anything out, how much money would be in that account in 2026? And that's not a trick question. It will still be $100
yeah.
for the most part, right? It's not going to grow. It might not lose value, but it's not going to grow in value. But because of inflation, that $100 is not worth the same anymore after 20 years, right? So if you have too much money in your bank account, it's actually losing value every single year to inflation. So at some point, your money has to be invested. It has to be working and growing at a minimum faster than the rate of inflation so that you can always stay ahead. So the mistake that I made was, as soon as I graduated college, I moved right back home with my parents, and I was working a job, and I literally had like no expenses. And so I gave myself like a couple $100 a month to spend on food or hanging out, but I was cheap. I wasn't hard to please, right? I'm eating Chipotle. I'm not like, going to Ruth Chris or anything. So I'm literally only spending money on food, and all the rest of my money is just stacking in the bank account. Now, I didn't have any big grandiose plans. I just knew that one lesson that I learned from my parents: live below my means. So that's what I was doing. And when I met a financial advisor after about 6 or 7 months into my career, and we had our first meeting, one of the first things he said to me was, "Why do you have all this money in a bank account?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?"
Isn't this what I'm supposed to do?
Is it this what? All right, what should I be doing? And then he introduced me to some things, and the light bulb went off. I became his client. We started working together. And again, fast forward, I ended up transitioning into being a financial advisor after about a year or so. But that was the mistake that I made. I was hoarding too much money in a bank account, trying to play it safe, not understanding that I was young and I should be taking risks so that my money can grow. I know that was long-winded.
No, I appreciate that, because
Yeah.
I think a lot of people who are just meeting you for the first time or have heard about you are probably thinking, oh, Clift's got this in the bag. Like, he knows exactly what he's talking about. And the fact that you came into this career with no idea that you were sitting on a gold mine,
Right.
that I think that this is a good conversation to have had. So I appreciate you for even sharing that. And is that why you started Cash Flow Conversations, so that you can have more like in-depth conversations with people without having like a meeting set up?
Really good question. So a lot of my one-on-one client meetings look very similar to the interviews that I'm having on Cash Flow Conversations. The difference is, in the past, when I was working as an advisor with firms, obviously I'm having confidential meetings that can't be recorded. I'm doing it for the purposes of just helping you plan your finances.
Right.
Well, I'm having very similar conversations now. It's just I'm independent. I can do what I want, and we can do it on camera and put it out to the public, but I also get to share the stories and highlight some really successful investors, entrepreneurs, and business owners in the midst of these conversations, and let other people hear their story and give them the spotlight as well. But absolutely, I mean, the conversations that we're having, they're the same. And it's funny you say that, because I remember like the second or third interview we did, one of the gentlemen I interviewed, he was like, wow. He's like, you did a really good job, man. Like you knocked it out the park. And it was funny to me because in his mind, he's like, oh, this kid is starting a new podcast. It might be a little rough, but it's like, I've done this thousands and thousands of times. Mm-hmm. I've had these conversations with thousands of families nationwide. The only difference is I have it recorded and we're going to put it out publicly.
Right.
But the conversations, the questions that I'm asking and what I'm uncovering and my listening skills have been developed over all these years by helping thousands of families unpack their financial situation and help them improve upon it. But having those conversations on Cash Flow Conversations has been amazing. It's been wonderful for networking and, again, educating people and sharing stories of some really dope people. So I'm excited for that to keep going.
Really dope people on this show.
Oh, we haven't even got started yet. we got a lot more in the tank.
I know that's right.
Yeah.
And speaking of networking, like we're not going to talk about the biggest deal that brought me to you was networking at Night Detroit. Let's talk about how that kind of coincides with this story. Because, I mean, you talked about the fact that you're wanting to impact people, and I know for a fact that you are doing it with that. So can you tell me how that came to be?
Yeah, and I won't give you the short answer either. I'll unpack. So what a lot of people don't know is that when I was in high school, my dad actually was like forced into an early retirement, right? Oh. And just like you talked about, Detroit has that hustle culture. We refuse to just lay down and get beat up and let things happen.
Yeah.
So my dad used to always tell me tales about how in the 80s, him and his friends would put together these cabarets. Everybody would come out dressed all nice and looking good, and they had the vibe. You know, parents tell us stories about what happened before we're born, and we're all of us like, whatever, you weren't that cool, right? Okay, I'll give it to my dad. Maybe he was kind of cool, right? So fast forward, when I get to college, he gets the band back together, right? So because he's no longer hustle and bustle 9 to 5 every day, he's like, we're going to make some stuff shake, but we're going to get back to what we know. Mm-hmm. So he reassembled his crew of guys who DJ and take pictures and host, and they started putting on parties. They would do a New Year's Eve party. They would do a party called the Shades of Blue every summer in July. They would do a Halloween party. Sometimes they would do a Mother's Day brunch, but they also did ballroom dance classes every single Friday. And they will rent out a hall, have a DJ, take pictures, charge $10 at the door. There will be food available. And I got to witness my dad. I'm 18, 19 years old. I'm going to Saginaw Valley at the time, but when I would be home for the weekends or home during the summer, I would be with them and I would witness my dad not only fill the room, but I would witness him greet people at the door. I would witness his hospitality, his respect. And I watched him gracefully move through a community of people and give them a good reason to go out the house on a Friday evening, have a good time, meet great people, be safe, and come back, right? And at that time, I did not realize what I was learning. Like I said earlier, a lot of stuff we do now is based on observation of our parents, whether we realize it or not. At the time, I didn't realize I was being groomed to be the hostess with the mostest, right? I'm just going to this thing my dad's putting together because I have nothing else to do. I'm not even old enough to go out to the bar on my own at this time, right? So I'm just kicking it with my parents. And then sometimes he would put me to work, go work the door, collect some money, go over there to the kitchen and, help them get this together, collect the money, pass out raffle tickets, right? Or go dance with some of those ladies because there's not enough men in here, right? So I'm 18, 19 years old, ballroom dancing with ladies that are like 65, and they're just like, oh my goodness, right? Just in awe. But what I was witnessing again was community, connection, camaraderie. So I never lost that, right? And so I've always had an itch for hospitality, and I like hosting people, having people over at our house, even if it's for a backyard barbecue or playing basketball in our backyard. I always had that, right? So fast forward, I get to Saginaw Valley, and I am the marketing director for our Black Student Union on campus.
Come on now.
Right? So what I'm doing now, again, is stuff that has been 10
Ingrained
plus years
in
in the
you.
making.
Yeah.
And so in my role as a marketing coordinator, what was I doing? I was running our social media pages. I was designing our t-shirts. I was making flyers, and I was bringing the Black students on campus out to events that were centered around promoting our education and building community, because we made up less than 5% of the student population there. That was in 2014, 15, 16 that I'm doing these things. So fast forward, I get into financial advising. Now, I always wanted to host events in order to attract new clients to my firm. And it wasn't really working out so well with some of the companies that I worked at. It was a lot of friction, but I never lost sight of that. And then it finally started clicking, making sense to host a reoccurring event series, which was the last Friday of every month, which is how it started. And that was in spring of 24, so almost 2 years now. And it started as small invite-only things. People were being invited to our office. And then I had a grand idea leading right up to my 30th birthday. This was in December of 24. I'm like, let me combine networking at night with a birthday celebration. And so more people came out to that one. And then I'm like, let me make a social media page. Let me get videographers involved. Let me get a DJ. And things just started expanding. Word caught on. I mean, word of mouth is powerful, right? Mm-hmm. And so I already had a vast network of clients and professionals that I knew from helping them with financial planning. Mm-hmm. So those were the people that I invited out because I wanted them to meet each other.
Right.
And so word just spread from there. They started inviting more and more people. Next thing you know, it's a phenomenon that the city's loving, and people from Toronto are coming over because they saw it on the internet. People are catching flights home from places like Dallas and California and Atlanta just to come out to the event. So it's been massive. But that is the roundabout journey and the background context that most people don't know, is that I've been witnessing my dad do these things since I was 18, 19 years old. And then in college, I was doing the same thing, creating the same atmosphere on campus. And now I'm just repeating that as an adult in Detroit with people of all different industries. So that's the short version.
Right. First and foremost, shout out to Dad.
Yeah.
For putting that bug in your ear, getting you into what he was doing. Because I feel like as a kid, you were probably like, Dad, I don't want to be here. I want to be with my friends. Like, I don't want to dance with these ladies. Like, what are they going to do for me? But slowly but surely, each time that you did that, you were building this idea and building what you've created now. And the fact that you have people flying back here to make it happen, and the whole entire thesis of who you are is to make an impact. So how does it feel to like be sitting and the impact that you're making right now? It's
surreal because a lot of times I'm always focused on the next one.
Yeah.
Right? Because we've done over 30 events in 24 consecutive months. So as you can imagine, my brain is like, okay, this one's done. Sleep overnight. The next day, it's like, okay, let me thank everybody who came out last night. Let me prepare this for the next one. So it's a constant, nonstop, working to make sure that I can continue to provide a wonderful experience and elevate it every single time. But it's really surreal. It doesn't surprise me because I always knew in one way, shape, or form that I would be doing something to impact our community at large. Mm-hmm. So this is the type of thing that I expected to be doing at this age. But it's a really surreal feeling when, like just yesterday, shout out to Chief James Harris of the Detroit Fire Department. I was having lunch with him yesterday at Central Kitchen, and a guy that I worked with at my first job at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, who's one of my managers, he walks in and sees me, and he comes over. He's like, man, it's good to see you, man. I'm so proud of you. Congratulations on everything you got going on. Every time I look up, you're just killing it. And Chief Harris is sitting there. He's just like smiling ear to ear. He's like, man, I love it, man. He's like, I'm so happy for you. And it's just crazy to, see people who, again, they knew me before these particular events started. Yeah. And, I bump into them and they have nothing but gratitude to express. But I think the most monumental moments for me is when I'm out and about and I meet people who are my parents' age, who are like, you do that networking stuff, right? Like, oh, I seen you on, and I'm like, okay, so it's not just a young professional thing.
It's generational.
It's not limited to people who are in their 30s. There are people in their 50s and 60s who know and recognize the work that we're doing, and that's when it really hits home for me the most.
I love that for you. I just feel like, especially having your parents' age say it to you, where it's like, okay, I'm doing something here. And I want to highlight that success is not linear, because we don't want to give people the expectation that, you just did it and it was instantaneous. There's obviously slow moments, down moments in success. So how do you reframe your thinking when success may feel a little slower for you?
That's a good question. A lot of what people don't know, like I said, the first events that we did were invite only. We had a couple events that before we, got to the Godfrey and started getting on social media, we had a couple events that were in certain locations downtown, and there were like huge concerts and stuff going on that day and road closures. And it's like 8 of us, and we're just like, man,
what's happening?
Right? It's like people couldn't make it. They got jammed up. and it looked very light, right? But I think me understanding what the long-term vision was of always holding myself as a resource to people and being there to educate and have an impact, it just kept me going no matter what, right? So I think it's important for anybody listening who's looking for motivation or they're in that slow moment or that slow period, is you got to realize, like, what was the original intention behind this anyway? And if the original intention was bigger than yourself, then this should keep you going. Because if it was about my ego or my mental health or my patience or me getting my time back, I would have been hung up the towel. I would have been through the towel in, right? Because it's been a lot of pressure, basically all on my shoulders, right? And I'm not saying that to brag, or I'm not happy about that, right? I wish there were like a bigger team or a ton of investors, but it's not, right? A lot of this stuff has been self-funded, out of pocket, all on my own hustle and grind. But in those moments where it's the hardest, again, who am I doing it for? It's for the people. It's bigger than me. So that's how I stay grounded in the moments where it's like, man, it would be easy to just say, man, forget this. I'm about to figure out something else or just throw the towel in. And then those moments, where I go out and somebody sees me and they're like, keep going. I'm like, okay, I got you. I will.
I love that. And I think it's very poignant to remember, like, to keep that why, especially in a ever-changing landscape.
Yeah.
It's always necessary to remember why you did it and to know that it's not about you. Like, you are the driver, of course, the instigator of it, but it's so much bigger than you are.
Absolutely.
And if you are just keeping it insular, it will stay insular. I have so many other questions, but we don't have much time. So I want to do a little lightning round with you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Absolutely. I think so.
Okay. Networking event or one-on-one meeting?
Networking event.
Okay. Early mornings or late night?
Early mornings.
Okay. Detroit, the best Detroit place to talk business?
I like Central Kitchen.
I just went to Central Kitchen recently. Num.
Yeah.
Love them. Okay. When it comes to Detroit hustle culture, blessing or curse?
Blessing.
Okay. I like it. First thing that people should fix financially?
Their mindset.
And then one word that describes Detroit entrepreneurs.
Relentless.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. And speaking of relentless, we are obviously doing this entire series to highlight people who may not get the recognition that they deserve. I mean, you have an incredible platform, and I was like, yeah, no, I absolutely want to talk to him and figure out where he came from and why this is a big deal to him and how he's created a lane that has had so many people not only become their own versions of culture shifters, but you are one yourself. So who are some people, if one or a few, that you would like to nominate as a Detroit culture shifter today?
For sure. I will be remiss if I did not mention my brother, Dr. Keyon Clinton of 1% Better. So he's been doing some phenomenal things. Him and I have collaborated on a number of things and got a lot more stuff coming up our sleeve. But he's somebody that before I started embracing social media and like really showing my face, I've always been in tune with his content and his impact and his events. So he's doing some really wonderful work all around the country. So definitely would say Dr. Keyon Clinton should be considered for a Culture Shifters feature. Also, my brother Jordan Smith, owner of Just Elevated Fitness Club. So he owns a gym.
I just saw him on my timeline.
Okay.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Keep going. I'm sorry.
Yep. So him and I, again, have partnered on some things. We have Friday Night Lifts, which is a concept where we're blending workout classes with the networking portion. So I had always wanted, I'd always wanted some type of workout element included in our community membership benefits. And when he reached out, like, look, I got this concept. I want to host this at my gym, but I want to have a networking portion. Like, what do you think? I'm like, I'm all for it. So we connected the dots, and that's been running for maybe about 2 months now. But once the spring and summer really blossoms, like that's gonna take off and tear the city by storm. So
had no clue that you were a part of that. When I tell you, I talked to my mother maybe 2 days ago being like, no, I need to be at this.
Yeah.
Because one, I love fitness. Two, you're going there with the idea of also meeting people. And as someone who is still a transplant of the city, I feel like I've ingrained myself a little bit by now. But as someone who is coming from outside the city. I'm always looking for experiences that I can bring to people who are like me, who are coming to Detroit and don't necessarily know where to go. I felt like, okay, one, you're getting a benefit out of, learning how to keep yourself fit and, talking to people, but it's also a way to meet different people at a common ground. So
Absolutely.
shout out to you and Jordan. Come on now.
Yeah.
That's
Appreciate
crazy.
that. Yeah. It's a wonderful collaboration.
I love that. I love what you guys are doing. Are there any other things that we should be looking out for, Clift?
Absolutely. I mean, we have some upcoming events. So I'll shout out 2 dates. April 24th.
Okay.
Right. Look forward to a mixer that day. And then also May 30th. We've got something super special to start the summer out with. That's going to be a massive collaboration. I won't name drop the 2 partners in that collab right now, but just know that when we announce this, there's only going to be one place in the city to be that night, and it's going to be with us and our partners for that event. That's going to be amazing. But what I'll also mention, obviously, people can always tune in to networkingatnightdet.com to see more about our upcoming events, and also check out our community platform and enroll and become a member if they want to. General membership is just $48 a month, and it gives people free access to the events that we do, plus a ton of other perks, stock market investing master classes that are virtual, discounts to the Friday night lifts, and a ton of different events. So it's a lot of impact involved with that community membership program. But other than that, yeah, I mean, our Instagram as well as Networking at Night DET. So just tap into those places to stay in the loop.
I love that. For $48, as long as you don't, go out for a meal one day a month,
Yeah, that's
your whole entire
Yeah.
just month right there. I know that's right.
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm gonna have to do that later. Remind everybody of the social medias one last time in case they didn't hear you.
Absolutely. So my personal page is Clift Roach on Instagram. That's CLIFTROACH. And then our Networking at Night event page is Networking at Night DET. And that's on Instagram and TikTok for both of those, my personal and the event page. And then I also shout out our podcast page, which is on Instagram and TikTok. It's cashflow_conversations.
I appreciate you so much, Clift, for being here, and congratulations for pushing the culture in the right way.
Thank you. I appreciate it.